had planned to talk to Jackson and Amanda Drost about balance, and we will get into the importance of balance during our conversation. However, another word became an unexpected theme, and that is adapting. Hi, I'm Dave Price, and this is the American Farmland Owner Podcast. Thanks for joining us, however and wherever you are. Now, adapting for the Drosts, just during our conversation, meant a few things. Adapting to a technology challenge, a really persistent gnat, delaying their date night dinner, and then raindrops. All of that in one conversation, but they persevered, they adapted, and that meant moving to a different place on a different device to try to get a better connection and to get out of the raindrops, all in the middle of the conversation. We were talking to them on their farm in New Sharon, Iowa, which is about 70 miles southeast of Des Moines. There's a lot going on for them right now, so we'll start there. All right, so tell everybody, how you doing? How's life? You all balance a lot of stuff. You got a family, you both work off farm too. Like, how are you?
I think it's going well. It's been crazy busy. I feel like, like every farm family who have kids involved in things, and especially with May being planting season this spring, field work. We have two boys, they're Richard and Andy. So Richard is almost 11 and Andy just turned 5 a couple of weeks ago, and they were involved in t-ball and baseball this spring. So it's just, living at the ball field and then also balancing, trying to get the crop in. So it's just been a crazy summer, and it's going fast, but wouldn't want it any other way.
Well, and ball field, had t-ball and little league, both in 2 different towns, some nights and that. And I think with all the games and that, and with the planting season, mid-April starting and that, I try to make every game. It gets hectic. It's hard to quick shutdown, go to the game for an hour and a half, come back to it. I made a lot of the games, and you can't get those memories back by missing them.
I hope this doesn't get too personal, but this came up with when I was talking to a husband whose extended family, has a farm in Kentucky, and he was talking about how the challenge and what you both are doing really underscores this. How you put your heart and soul into this operation, and you both work off farm too, but you're still a husband and wife. And if it's not saying too much about your personal life, I will just say here, we're talking to you, and we are the last conversation standing in your way of a date night. Can you talk, if you're willing to talk about this, because it's such an exhausting, all-encompassing life, and you're trying to build your operation for the kids to take over one day, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But how important and how hard is that for you all to make sure that somehow in all of this hectic craziness, you can still have a little time for just the two of you? How hard is that?
A lot of society don't realize the mental weight that can be on a farm family. And for me, we have my dad and an uncle that I farm with, and then we got hired help too, trying to tie together everybody's mentality or personalities, because everybody has a different personality. And when you're all family, that kind of adds a little weight to it. But being able to take all of that and yet focus on Amanda and my kids and keep that all together can be a challenge, but yet we need to focus on what's important, and that's really family. I mean, it's if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
I had me one time, I'll call him Pastor Mark, and he was who officiated our wedding. He told me one time, he said, as a guy, we want to try to fix it. And we need to realize that we also need to take time to sit down and listen to each other, whether whether it's how to fix it or not to fix it, or wait, we need to take the time for each other. And like Amanda said, just randomly finding those times to where, like, the kids they were in bed the other night. I was still outside working on some stuff, trying to get stuff ready for the next day. We just had an hour in the shop. I can't even remember what we were working on. I think it was with a sprayer, and we were together, and that's sometimes the best dates there are. We had the time to talk to each other about different things that are going on. Like I said, Little League's wrapped up. Going into July, different things. We're going to go on a little family trip for 4 days, stuff like that. We were able to discuss that, her and I, doing what we love. And I mean, those are, like I said, it's difficult to get all of that to tie together, but yet them are the best memories also. Them are the best times.
And I think that goes too with kids. I think it works well for trying to figure out times to like do things with kids. But I think for our family, it's, working together on the farm. It
Right.
just, going for a gator ride, or just, finding those times to be together doing something. It's just a lot of fun.
All right. So I think from this story, we've just come up with the name of your book. And that is A Broken Sprayer Brought Us Together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you find your
That's
moments, right?
Yeah, I think.
I mean, how romantic, let's be honest. I mean, what better way to spend
Yeah,
some
right.
quality time
And
fixing
I
that
think
sprayer?
that, as for farm wives, or for Amanda, like I said, I said tying together everybody's personality and everybody's mentally wired different.
Mhm.
And I'm the one that's trying to, with our farm, kind of coordinate all that together. Amanda's kind of the one that gets to hear me talk about, well, this is going on, this, and this, and trying to tie it together.
Yeah.
She's my listening ear, and I'm her listening ear, and she's great at listening to me. I'm one that I want to fix what
Yeah.
she brings, but she has to remind me at times, I need you to listen. And that was, and I made the joke that time to Pastor Mark. I said, I want to add a third thing to that. I says, you want me to tell me, do I need to fix it, listen, or tell me how I've been screwing up lately? Which that doesn't happen very often.
This conversation has happened in my house, I don't know how many times, because I think that is definitely our
Well-
genetic character flaw, is that we think we have to fix it as guys. And sometimes that's not what
Yes.
our wives
Yep.
want us to do. They want us to shut the hell up and just listen, right?
Right. Well,
Yeah.
in 14 years, I'm still struggling.
I have 3 years on you, and I'm still struggling. So, hey, you talked about the boys. Can you talk about? I mean, we're kind of playing around about how much you all work and stuff, but that's because of the business plan that you've all put together, and that's why you work so hard off farm too, as you're building your farming operation. Can you talk a little bit about how you put everything together as you think ahead years from now, setting up the boys should they choose to continue on what you're building?
Let me think on that. So the one thing, and we've talked to some people on this, is I want my boys, whether they choose to farm or not, I want them to know that how we did it was, we want to make everything better for what's to come. And, with how we treat the land, how we take care of the land, how we take care of each other, I want them to see that we don't want to take we don't want to take without giving back. And that's with life, with meeting people, with more to, there's more to that than just the land. It's every day in life in general. And I want them to have, I want them to know that when you put effort into something, you get a reward. and it might not be a reward, let's say 1 year or an instant reward. It might be years down the road. You look at cover crops. I think now we're into this past year, this year, we're planting 100% cover crops. Well, are you gonna, the benefits of that are not here tomorrow. They could be 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road. And that's what I really want them to see is when you put effort into something, you're going to get rewarded one way or another. You might not see it today, you might not see it tomorrow, and you might not see it to years after the fact, but that's what I really hope they get out of what we do or what we try to do.
How do you
And yeah, I would agree. I mean,
go ahead, Amanda? Sorry.
I feel like yeah, teaching that work ethic to the boys, and just teaching them, like, family is important, work ethic is important. Even planning. I know Richard, he's almost 11, but he'll help his dad downstairs in the basement. We have a farm office, and he'll help his dad, print maps or do everything on the computer. And I think just teaching them, like, things just don't happen. They take a lot of planning and logistics into it.
Richard's actually at his grandparents, Amanda's mom and dad, up in Elkader this week. So last night, Andy, the 5-year-old, I was working on some stuff, planning corn fungicide application stuff and working on that. And he was on top of it. He was sitting on my lap. I want to see what we're doing. Richard's not here.
Man.
I'm here to help.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I hope there was a moment where you could take that
priceless.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think making the boys just involved in everything that you do, so they learn from it. So.
And Richard, he's gonna be 11 here in September. He's got a lot of growing up to do. But one thing I always like to do is explain to him how and why I kind of make decisions on the farm. Kind of show it to him. I know he doesn't understand. He's still trying to wrap his head around it. But we're never too young or too old to learn something, if that makes sense. Age on learning, I mean, it's we can always learn something no matter our age. And I know he sees at times, if I have a stressful day, he knows it. I mean, I'm not trying to tell him I do, but he's like, "Hey Dad, what's going on?" He can and it's kind of neat, and at times I like showing him, okay, we have these vehicles here, this tractor here, and it needs to end up at this farm. Well, Richard, let's take a piece of paper. Here's our people available. How would we go about doing this? These are the people that can drive this and that. How do we go about getting from point A to point B? And it's fun sitting there listening to their reason, and we can learn. I mean, I learned from it too.
Yeah.
And they've started Drost Brothers Popcorn. They've Richard's dad, he started that really on his own
a few years ago.
This is his third season. The first season was just for us to do it, or pop in the winter at home. And watching him, and this is all, I mean, I've told him, if you don't want to do this, you don't have to do this. This is it's all him, and I laugh, we're his help.
Yeah, we're his
help. But it's been fun to watch him and work through problems to do what he's done with it. I mean, we're helping with it and that, but yet 100% of it's him and his brother. We're, like I said, we help shell, we help clean. He'll get his cousins or some of the neighbor kids, and this is the day we're gonna pick. He's recruiting help. But yet if he would come tomorrow and say, "Hey, Dad, I don't want to do the popcorn," I'm not gonna make him do it. It's all his. And it's fun to watch what they learn and what they teach us in the process.
Or what he wants to improve on it. Like, he sees a problem, like, this didn't work like I wanted to. How can we improve it? So I think just when you mentioned about school and, like, just learning different things, I remember it was 2020 and he was kindergarten, I think. And we were joking, like we were in, I think it was harvest time or that time. And we were like, oh, what if, school shut down totally? And, who's going to teach them these different things? And it was almost like, we're like, whatever you're doing, if you're hay baling, counting the bales in the field. So he would just like learn his math.
Yeah, he was doing math. He was doing math that way
by,
when COVID.
Yeah, taking like hay away from the field, like how many bales do we have left? And
I love it.
So yeah.
So how have you taught them? You're trying to teach them to do things the right way, to respect the land, to respect each other, the work ethic involved that goes into this. They get to sit there and watch you do the planning. They surely, even if they're not directly talking to you about, dang, mom and dad both have 2 jobs here and they're balancing all this stuff and they're doing this to build this for us. How do you talk them about, as you well know, this year hopefully it's going to end up better, but in Iowa, dealt with droughts for really the better part of 3 years. Sometimes you can do almost everything right and the weather doesn't cooperate, right? How do you talk to them about that when you do every stinking thing right, but there's something you can't control and that causes you a big problem?
This sounds easier than it is because I struggle with it myself. It's, can you worry about what you can't control?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because it's easy to do so, but worrying doesn't change them. And we have a few creek bottoms and some river bottom land. Last night, the news show, Pella, east side of Pella, 3.5 inches of rain. One of our creek bottoms, that creek starts east side of Pella.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the most beautiful corn crop we have is on that one of the fields is on that creek. It went to a foot from bank high. I went and looked at it. I had somebody today, and it's funny how many people let me know how high that creek is. It's like, it's like, can you do anything about it? No, but yet it's that fact of being able to wrap your head around that. And that's not easy. Mm-hmm. And I say this to my boys a lot, and they've heard me say that. I hope it's registered, but Matthew 7:13, enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. What we do, we can take the easy way, but is that the way with the greatest reward? And the most difficult paths or some of the most difficult decisions in the long term of life have the biggest rewards. And it's just being able to accept that and do that. And I'm one that I always think I can do more. I always feel like I'm not, am I doing enough? Mm-hmm. And, being able to control what we can control and let go of what we can't control is difficult. But that's one of the biggest things in the farming, with farming. I mean, I always made the joke to, I always hear people say, pray for rain, pray for rain. I'm one that says, no, don't pray for rain. Pray he provides, because he might turn the valve on.
Right.
He might open,
and leave it on.
Tell him how much rain. You just said, let it rain. Well, he might open that spigot up and just let it happen. And you're like, well,
and he's answering the prayer.
Another deal.
That's right.
Yeah, he answered the prayer. But it's like, being able to mentally work through that, it's a challenge. And I think, but some of the most difficult things with the greatest rewards are working through that.
And I think that's life in general, not only just farming, but any situation that you have. Is there's plenty of things, you can control, but it's the things that you can't control that just pop up and you have to work through those. And I think some of the times the things that you can't control, it just makes you stronger going through those. So. Mm-hmm.
And were you both raised that way? Is that why that's already part of your psyche?
Uh,
Are our parents listening? No.
yeah. I watched I always will, and I make the joke, but it's not a joke. It was the truth. My dad carried. I tell people I started farming as a baby. My dad carried a diaper bag with him, and I was with him all the time. And he had river bottoms, and he had that. And I always seen, or crop disasters. I mean, he always jokes around coming up, we're in the end of June. Some of the biggest storms that caused the biggest destruction to the best looking crops were the end of June. He can tell you the date. I want to say he always says June 28th, which, is really pretty close. And once we get through that, we're going to be good. Well, but he always laughs about it or after the fact. And watching him, sorry, we got a gnat flying around here. But watching him through that and go through that, I think taught me a lot. Amanda grew up on a dairy farm, a lot of highs and lows that it didn't stop our parents, my dad talks a lot about the 80s and going through the 80s and the struggles then, and he kept going, and I wasn't really very old, but just watching him go through that and talk about the different stories later in life, there's something there's a lot more to the picture in our lives than just today and tomorrow, and we will work through everything that comes our way. It's just being able to sit down and grasp it and have that goal looking into the future.
And I think I would say that too. My parents, they dairied, and they got rid of their cows probably 8 years ago. But just my grandpa, he passed away 2009, but he farmed up until he was 84 years old, and with my dad. And I think just seeing the work ethic, and you do have your highs and lows, especially with the dairy farming the way it was in the 90s and 2000s, early 2000s, and you just didn't know what tomorrow brought, and a lot of changes and fluctuations. But just kind of just working through those situations and keep doing what you're doing, and have faith. I think that's that's part of it too.
So when are you both finding, Jackson, you talked about the importance of always learning. When are you finding the time to learn?
Living.
I guess living. That's a good question. I think I learn a lot of things, but don't notice it till maybe after the fact.
Okay.
Is that
Yeah.
is that going through life for different things? And I'd say the farm stuff, it'd be my uncle Dick. Like, so we farm. My dad and my uncle Dick and I all farm together. My uncle Dick, he's 75 now. He does a lot of reading now and that different stuff. He finds a lot of different things, for the farm, different things through that. I listen to a lot of different things, when we're in the field, different stuff to try to learn from. And I'm one that I really have a short attention span. I bounce around a lot. You probably, you've noticed that, in that. And it's like I said, I really don't, find stuff that, hey, wait a minute here. That was something I didn't quite know until maybe I've done it. If that makes if that makes sense. In trial and error, that's a lot right there. Planning ahead. Amanda mentioned that earlier. Planning ahead to different stuff like the fungicide coming up, different stuff from planning to sitting down after the fact or sitting down after harvest and say, okay, I had kind of this plan, but this is different things that happened to where places we're delivering grain to, their hours might have been changing or different to where we have to change a plan to where you sit down and kind of think back to what could I have done different, and just making mental notes from that to even making that change what where just to try to plan ahead with harvest. If that, and it's that,
And I think too, it goes with, I'm trying to think of that video, but it's always about what's the neighbor doing. So I feel like, this farming community has just, everyone talks. And I think people can learn, not only talk farm and saying, wow, that farm looks great. What are they doing? So I feel like there's that too, just looking up farm.
All right, you both talked about balance. So I'm curious, how do you balance with, we're in this 24/7 constant information flying at us. You got to deal with the repercussions, the aftermath of whether it's political decisions made in your state or made across the country. You got to figure out, are tariffs going to happen? Are they not going to happen? Are they going to affect your input costs, your borrowing costs, all this stuff? How do you balance all that stuff?
Well, it's one of them things it's always on your mind. And it's also one of them things that can you technically control all of it? So it goes back to, I said earlier, trying to figure out what you can control and what you can't control. But even what you can't control, you have to plan around. And really, no matter what political party is in office, you always have those situations, or another foreign country does something, it has a cause and effect. No matter, if you're looking at fuel prices to looking at chemical prices, fertilizer prices, to even what we get for our product that we make. There's a cause and effect, but yet at the same time, if you sit there dwelling on it 24/7, mentally you're going to be you're not going to be able to work through it. And it's being able to also find the time to not think about it. And you also look at, in that deal too, we're getting news articles the minute things happen, but yet we're also getting news articles or articles that are almost scare tactics, or, look what AI has done to anything and everything, to even articles that pop up on our news feeds or on stuff like that. I was a few weeks ago, man is on New Sharon Spring Festival Committee. Bring Back the Rose Festival is what it was this year. And I always announce, one of the things I love doing is announcing the parade. Me and a former classmate, good friend of mine, we announced the parade together. Well, small town, 1,100 people, you're trying to get, find some background info to say before the parade, or even different things coming through. And here AI had an article about the Spring Festival, Bring Back the Rose Festival, and I'm reading it, and it's like, okay, this is right, this is right. Well, this hair's wrong, this isn't right, but yet it's like, how, and that's what some of these articles we read, and it's like, some of these decisions that happen, whether, they're in the EU or they're in, different, Russia, different things, we have to be able to think about the cause and the effect of those, but yet it's back to one of them things you also have to let go of, because I can't control it, you can't control it, but yet we got to find that balance, if that makes sense. And Amanda can probably talk on that too.
Yeah, and I think too, it's important, if you look in history and farming, farmers are resilient, and I believe that's just a testament to what they do and what they go through, and no matter what the changes are, just working through those changes, and you have to be I'm at a loss for words, but adaptable to different situations. And I think just kind of example like I thought of was like during COVID. So I worked at a hospital during COVID, and I felt like at that time life was so crazy. You heard everything was constantly changing, what we're supposed to do for different things. And it was just a time where things were changing every second. And then I went home from work, and it was, springtime, and farmers were in the fields, and kind of like, well, we just continued to farm. So I feel like it's just it just means that, no matter what situations that life has, you're still going to do what you do, and just be positive throughout the whole situation.
Well, and you'll also look back through history of the way we farm and how we farm. it's changed many times over. And it's all been, some of it's been because of how politics have played out in different things, to where different programs from politics to different changes, you look back at history to different things that have happened in other countries and what they've done. But when you can adapt to those changes, that's what keeps you in this business. And I say this often. You look back at, the way our grandparents farmed was a great way. But yet, if I was farming the way they were farming, I probably wouldn't be farming anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, they've adopted to change. And you look at my dad and my uncle, they're now in their low 70s. They've changed as times have changed, as different, programs, different legislations, different things, decisions in foreign trade, tariffs. I mean, that's all happened, and they've worked through that. And yet it's caused change for the better in the long run. I mean, we might not see it today, tomorrow, but we have to deal with, no matter who's in what office, we have to deal with that, and we have to adapt to what's happening. If you don't adapt, you're probably not going to survive. You're probably, it's that adaptation. And I do give credit to my dad and my uncle. They allow change. And
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the first steps, is you have to be able to accept change, allow change. And, look, who's president now is not going to be president forever. He's going to, but
Mm-hmm.
the president before, they all do things that have cause and effects. And we all have to adapt and change with their decisions. And, 10 years, 12 years, 20 years down the road, we're all going to be kind of looking into that, but it's finding the, what I do. Oh, there. So
No,
sorry,
you're
sorry.
good.
We had
You're
some
still
fun.
cranking along.
Being able to find that balance is difficult. And I give Amanda a lot of credit with something. She has something that I kind of do struggle with, and that's, reading stuff on a phone or looking at stuff. She's does really good at putting it down to find that time away. I'm one that, yeah, overnight markets are opening up. What stories happen? I want to know, hey, what's happening now, to where when I wake up in the morning, I'm grabbing my phone to look at what the overnight grain markets are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, oh my, this is happening. Why is this happening? I'm trying to find the reasons. And that's something I do struggle with, but it's yet finding that balance, because instead of getting information a day from now of that happened today, we now get it the minute it happens. And, that's
Good or bad?
good or bad technology.
Yeah, because if you're trying to find the why did this happen right when it happened,
Right.
that may send you down a rabbit hole of, before you know, you've just wasted an hour and a half on your phone and you still don't know the answer yet.
And you didn't get anything done in the process.
Exactly right.
All
Exactly
you
right.
accomplished was a headache.
Exactly.
So it's finding that balance.
Right. Thank you both for doing this. And I still can't believe you agreed to talk before date night. You two are something else. I mean, you've adapted to everything. That annoying gnat that was coming after you when you were still standing outside. You battled through technology. You battled through the raindrops. And now hopefully you can go have a good quiet dinner in town.
You just jinxed us now.
No, don't
Yeah,
jinx it yet.
I hope that is not the case.
Oh,
It's
it'll be wonderful.
It'll be
So good to catch up with you both, and thanks for sharing your story and walking us through all this. We appreciate it.
Hey, anytime, Dave. We enjoyed a lot.
Yeah,
We
thanks,
enjoyed it.
Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Have a great date.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Have a blessed evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Props to both of them for adjusting right in the middle of the conversation. They're dealing with the raindrops and the gnat, and then the technology was glitching on us a few times. So we appreciate them finding a plan B to make this work. You can learn more about this family and Drost Farms and why Farmer of the Year is now part of their resume. It's all in our profile piece about them. It's in our American Farmland Owner newsletter. It's free, comes out every week, and it's the place where landowners get their news about the latest trends, challenges, and opportunities. You can find it at AmericanFarmlandOwner.com. Thanks for joining the conversation this week. We hope you will like and share this podcast so others can find it too. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for caring about the future of our farmland.